And now Nicholas Caplin to close the case for the opposition.
Mr. President, thank you very much indeed. This is a considerable honour to be here, to be invited to speak. I'm not an historian, I'm not an academic, I was a soldier, I am a veteran. And that's the perspective that I'm speaking from. And my proposition is that the business of remembrance is individual, it's personal. We do, and we must continue to remember. They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Those words of the Oxford poet Lawrence Binyon are uttered every day at the Menin Gate that Dr. Morrison mentioned. Every day. And they have been since July 1928, apart from 4 years, the Second World War, when that ceremony was done at Brookwood Cemetery here near Woking. Every day. And that ceremony attracts thousands of people. Soldiers, veterans, normal people from many, many different nations, not just British. Because they're there to think about the 54,000 names that are up there on the inside of that arch. Actually, by the end of the war, they reckon about 90,000 people died in the Ypres salient, whose bodies were never recovered. And 250,000 died there in all. Just think about those numbers. They are extraordinary. Ypres has a particular interest for the charity that I work with, Blind Veterans, because it was, of course, the site of the first gas attacks in the First World War. And in 2015, I went back to the Menin Gate and to Ypres with some blind veterans and some children from a blind school up in Merseyside. And I had the privilege of listening to a blind girl reading through Braille the McRae Flanders Field poem. It was very moving. Well, those children, in their learning, took some lessons from this. And fast forwarding it to last week, they made the pilgrimage down from Merseyside into the Palace of Westminster with a whole host of handmade ceramic poppies, which they gave to all the MPs there. And indeed, if you saw Prime Minister's questions last week, Theresa May was wearing her poppy made by St Vincent's School. And they're now thinking about doing other things in terms of helping blind children across the world based on inspiration they picked up on the imposition of blindness from that Ypres experience. So that was quite moving. Remembrance is deeply personal. Over 1 million Commonwealth soldiers were killed in the First World War, and every single one has been mentioned on a Commonwealth War Graves Commission campaign called Everyone Remembered. Over 1 million. And every single one of those has been recognised online and paid and acknowledged online. And actually the first of those to be recognised was the complete Indian contingent. That's extraordinary. They have remembered. They have remembered every single name. Here at Oxford, you've got a roll of service of some 14,500 people of Oxford University who were involved in the First World War. You lost 300 people just in the Battle of the Somme. You lost some very eminent people. You lost Henry Moseley, who gave us the Moseley Law. And he is the guy that people say was the greatest single loss out of everybody in the First World War, because he had the most potential, the most to give. He was killed in Gallipoli in 1915, working as a technical officer. But his death actually led to scientists becoming a protected trade against deployment through conscription in future conflict. So that had some impact. On Sunday at the Cenotaph, we have the 100th anniversary. And the royal family will be there. Our government will be there with the opposition. As we've heard, the President of Germany is going to be there. Yes, standing alongside the Queen and Theresa May. And there'll be lots of other people there as well. I'm going to be there, and what goes through my mind at that sort of event is the people that I remember and I've lost, but it's also the white grave markers that I remember seeing in fields in Bosnia of civilians caught up in conflict. And it's also the experiences that I had when in Germany marking their remembrance on their Valenttag Day, along with German civilians, and doing it in their particular way. 10,000 veterans are going to be on parade as well, and each and every one of those will be dealing with it in a personal way. The oldest veteran is going to be a guy called Ron Freer, 103. He's a blind veteran. He was blinded in the Second World War in a prisoner of war camp in the Far East, and hasn't seen a thing since then, and he became profoundly deaf as a result. His father was killed in the First World War in September of 18. That's just 2 months before the end of the First World War. So Ron Freer remembers the Great War, and he also remembers his own experience. And at the age of 103, he wants to be there on Sunday to pay his respects. And the cenotaph experience is not the glorification of war. It is not the celebration of victory. It is a profoundly solemn and sad event when everybody will bring their own personal memories to that place. And it is not uncommon to see tears rolling down cheeks as they do so. The cenotaph is not the only event on Sunday. There will be similar events across the country. There are 10,000 town and parish councils who are working up their own remembrance events for this weekend, and that's about 100,000 councillors that are focusing on this. They're not doing it because they're being told to, they're doing it because they want to and because they feel it is the right thing to do. But remembrance doesn't just happen on Remembrance Sunday and at cenotaphs and at memorials. Remembrance happens all the time. It is a continual thing, and it doesn't start and stop with the First World War. I think the new National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire is a remarkable establishment. It has 30,000 trees spread over 150 acres, and there are 300 memorials, not just to troops lost in battle, but to people caught up within battle. In 2015, I was privileged to go there with our blind veterans who'd been blinded in the Afghanistan conflict. And for the first time, they saw the Bastion Wall, or rather they felt the Bastion Wall. And they felt the names of soldiers that they had left behind in Afghanistan. And one of them even felt the name of the guy who died in his arms. Now that is remembrance. It is very real, it is very personal, and it lives on. Work that we did as a charity, just to try and get a feel for the military connections across the country, estimated that there are about 6 million people in the country today who we would have some relationship to as a blind veterans charity. An insurance company has actually said that there are about 20 million people in this country who have a relationship, a linkage somehow to the military community. So it is for everybody across the country. It's not just for soldiers, because every time you get a death, it's the person who's lost, but it's the family, it's the friends, it's the people who were in some way involved with that person. But so what? I think we all agree we remember, but so what? For soldiers, at an act of remembrance, quite often they will also have the epitaph from the Kohima Memorial based in northeast India, which goes, "When you go home, tell them of us, and say, for your tomorrow we gave our today." And that's the clarion call for action. Do not let our lives lost be in vain. So that, I think, is our challenge today. We need to remember and we need to learn lessons. And of course, it's not people just people who've been killed, it's people who've been maimed as well. In the Great War, for every person killed, there were at least 2 who had life-changing injuries. Today, we take the inspiration from that. We have just erected a statue in Manchester, Piccadilly, of 7 blind veterans to remind us that there are people today wounded in battle who need our help. And I think one great change from the Great War to today is in the Great War, there was very little for people to come back to help them when they were injured. Today, there is an extraordinary network of support that's there as a safety net for people and to get them back on their feet and to regain their lives again. So my proposition is simple. I believe we have remembered as a nation and as individuals. Remembrance is deeply personal. I believe that we must continue to remember, because for those who have given their lives, they must not have given their lives in vain. I ask you to oppose the motion with me. Thank you.